Good afternoon and welcome to Unbox Lunch. Before we get started, please know that this event is being recorded. I'm Jenny Williams, Associate Director of the Archives of American Art at the Smithsonian Institution. We are thrilled you are joining us for lunch. Today, we will feature the newly acquired papers of artist Lily Yeh. One correction from the invitation that I wanted to make is that Lily was a professor at the University of Art, not the University of Pennsylvania. However, she did co-found the Village of Arts and Humanities, founded the Barefoot Artist Organization, was raised in Taiwan, and came to the United States in 1963. A few housekeeping items. At any point during the presentation, you can submit your questions into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen on the control panel. Closed captioning is available. You can access your captions by clicking the CC button on the right side of your control panel. Lastly, we are so lucky to have Lily in attendance. So Lily, please do chime in throughout the webinar with any comments or any questions. Now I welcome Josh T. Franco, National Collector of the Archives of American Art, who will explore the collection with us. Hey, Josh.
Hi, Jenny. Hi from a very far time zone. Good to see you. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on what in DC is a very nice, almost summer, finally Friday. I'm very, very, very excited to share this first installment of the Lily Yeh papers with everyone. There's a few special things about this collection that we'll get into. I want to give a little more of an intro than I normally do with Unbox. You know, these are pretty casual, but there's an interesting track record here. So before I was even at the archives, I encountered Lily's work when I was invited to review the documentary film about her work with the Barefoot Artist Organization. The film was released in 2015, and I wrote that review then, so I haven't looked at it in years, but I went back to it this morning, and I just want to read the first and last lines. I think it's interesting coincidence because you know, the Venice Biennale is going on right now, which is such a central activity for the art world. And I think Lily's work stands up to that sort of phenomenon in a very interesting way. So just a little bit of an introduction from that review of the documentary in 2015. While spectacular biennials and fairs pulled focus, other venues incubated an equally global art. These unfabulous sites include inner-city Philadelphia, Jamestown and Accra, Ghana, Korogocho in Kenya, Rugerero Survivors Village in Rwanda, the Daxing district edging Beijing, and other merely out-of-the-way pockets, as opposed to fabulously out-of-the-way destinations. Their champion, whose entrepreneurialism is measured in an economy of social healing rather than auction house sales, is Lily Yeh, an artist self-propelled into broken places. And the review closes, it is this writer's hope that the film plays a part in opening up Yeh's practice to other worlds, not because she needs the art world. One could offer the barefoot artist shoes, but she likely would put them on someone else's feet, but because the history of art should, like any intellectual activity, be accountable to unjust conditions glaringly near the global sites we already tread. This might begin paying the rent on spaces the world over, taken up by the circuits of spectacle through which we have made our often myopic world.
That's lovely. Thank you for sharing that.
I was sure it was fun to find. And again, so that was before I came to the archives by just a few months, and then I came to the archives and was in my position on the curatorial team here. In 2017, Aviva Kapust, who is executive director of the Village of Arts and Humanities, which Lily co-founded, and I'll explain more about, met our director at the time, Kate Haw, who connected, and Aviva was recommending we should, think with Lily about plans for her papers. And it was at that point and in this role, we reconnected. And so in the years since, I've visited Lily at her home in Philadelphia a couple of times. We've had a very interesting Zoom meeting from China while Lily was on site there with Zhuer Jiang, who's been assisting throughout this whole process really wonderfully. And it's just been a really lovely conversation for a few years. And the first thing to enter the door is this installment of papers I'm sharing with you all today. So Lily's practice has generated much, analog paper like this. which we certainly plan to collect, and we're figuring that out. But the pandemic happened. So what we ended up focusing on, and typically I like to do paper before addressing Born Digital, but in the pandemic, of course, I couldn't travel to Philly. I couldn't spend time in Lily's home with her to keep organizing and thinking about those. So we switched strategies to collect the Born Digital materials that are also part of Lily's papers that I'll share with you today. So I'm gonna this is, there's nothing on my desk. There's no box here. I can have coffee during Unbox, which is not normally the case, because of course you don't want liquids around papers. So we'll get into a screen share now. Before I get into the papers.
Well, will you tell us a little bit about Born Digital and what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do that as soon as I start sharing the materials with you. For right now, I just want to show you this trailer of the Barefoot Artist documentary that is just a great context, kind of a short bio of Lily, so everyone understands the material we'll look at after, and I will definitely explain what we're looking at, because this is just going to be a kind of a different Unboxed. But here's this trailer first.
Our world is full of darkness. What can an artist do but bring color and paint and still celebrate life? Beauty is intimately engaged with darkness, with chaos, with destruction. You need to walk into the darkness and hold it in your arms. Broken places are my canvases. People's stories are my pigments, and people's talents and imagination are the instruments. What inspired me to come here to create? A simple question, difficult to answer. Somehow it related to my father. He caused immense suffering when he abandoned his first family.
对不起我妈，就是应该尽的责任没尽到，还替爸爸来，跟你道歉。
I came from a broken place. Life breaks all of us. I really want to break everything loose. I just want to go to unknown places, and I want to know what my life carries and where the passions take me.
So you can see Lily's really engaged, really redefines what we mean by global art. And that's just really been hitting me as I'm seeing, everyone in Venice right now on Instagram, for instance. So I think it's nice we're doing this right now. So Born Digital are materials that are created digitally. So they're different from digitized material, which of course the archives has excelled at producing over the last 15, 16 years or so. So Born Digital are things that digital photographs taken through digital cameras, Word documents, PDFs, things created, things sketched in Adobe Suite, for instance, rather than on yellow notebook paper or something like that. So in the pandemic, we could facilitate the transfer of that material into the archive. So that's what happened. Also, Lily travels heavily too, so that she could be in China or home in Philly to do this work. And again, with Shuer doing much of the logistics as well. And a shout out to George Apodaca and our digital archives team, who also facilitated this. It's sort of, I kind of just watched the process after a certain point. And so just if you're interested in logistics, basically Dropbox is the equivalent of FedEx. And that's how the transfer took place here. And then things are moved, of course, onto more permanent servers. So we have a digital assets drive here at the archives. That's what you're looking at here. George, very kindly made me a copy of Lily's materials so that if I accidentally delete or move things, it doesn't matter. This is just a kind of disposable copy. The actual files that are part of the collection live elsewhere, and I will not touch them. Let's leave it to the experts. But let's go in here. And Jenny, my screen's there, right? You can see it?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yes.
It's, very clearly labeled Josh copy, George made me.
Yes, correct.
George,
if you're listening, we're doing right by you.
Yeah, of course. Never touch the originals. Metadata is a huge, huge important aspect of Born Digital material. And I'll show you what I mean by metadata shortly. And even just accessing an original file can change that metadata, which sort of makes the research integrity a little lower. So you don't want to do that. So I'll note, so these are kind of larger folders. Within them, they're typically by location, by sites that have been through very severe traumas, often genocides. Lily's also worked at schools. So we'll look at all of these as we go. This is in Chang'an. Opening, here's pictures, which everyone, we love to see. Just in general, I'm always very gratified to collect any documentation of murals because they are such, in the US and everywhere, murals are exposed, they're subject to development, they're subject to cities changing, they're subject to graffiti. Murals are very vulnerable works of art that are difficult to preserve. So I always feel it's a little extra important that we have documentation like this at the archives. So I'm glad to have that here. So not just the murals, but you see a lot of the process. So, everything is very collaborative and all the imagery comes out of, Lily's methodology of working with folks. And let me take a step back too, and I'm going to read this from Lily's bio because it's a good succinct kind of snapshot of how she came to this methodology. So in 1986, Lillier was asked by the dancer and educator Arthur Hall to create a park in an abandoned lot next to the Ile Ife building in North Philadelphia. In partnership with Arthur's friend Jojo Williams, a local mason, Lily invited children and adults to join her in clearing the rubble-filled lot. Together, they transformed the lot into an art park with brilliant mosaics and sculpted trees, creating an oasis of safety and peace. So having developed that methodology in Philadelphia, Lily's now gone all over the world through the organization Barefoot Artists to bring that sort of healing through art to other communities. There you see, these, I've discussed with Lily whether sketches like this exist in what she has in Philadelphia, and in some cases they do, which is great. But perhaps they don't. So having photographs of the children with these papers, which as an archivist, it's of course the first thing I kind of zero in on is the paper. It's great to have in photographs. And here's Lily demonstrating, looks like brushwork to one of the children she's working with. So there's lots of photos, lots of cute children, amazing. Okay, I'm gonna try not to get just sucked into doing this, but here you go. Mosaic. Yeah. And Jenny, I can't see the chat on screen sharing, so definitely let me know if.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then besides photographs, there are super helpful documents like this. And kind of outline programs.
So the photos that we just saw, this is probably an outline of that project.
Yeah, exactly. So here it looks like, these are kind of short descriptions. So probably used, Lily could tell us, maybe used in sort of publications about this. I imagine it takes a lot of sort of coalition building to do these projects in these sites. For those kinds of projects, for community engaged artworks, you always have to have short printed statements to hand city officials, curious people, that kind of thing. Yeah, so the Smithsonian has some collection of materials from Judy Baca, for instance. Her paint splattered boots from working on the Great Mural first phase are in the American History Museum. Mm-hmm. So another, fantastic muralist, US based, who's here. And here's something Shuir worked on, not bagged. Bagged is a term I don't fully understand, but George does, and that's what matters. and Shuir does, so that's part of the process. And so what you're seeing, as with all Unboxed, you're seeing like a raw collection. So it has been, the deed of gift has been signed and it is part of our collection, but it has yet to go through processing. And I'll give you an example of what it will look like after soon. Oh, this is a very helpful document with active links. I'm curious if we'll keep those links active or not. That's something the archivist will determine, I imagine. But all of these videos related to, just all of the media related to Lily. What a nice consolidated document. Because if you Google Lily, there's a lot of kind of entry points to her work and documentation of it. So that's really nice.
So Josh, these would have been files that George would have organized, or they would have come.
Yeah, George definitely consulted. These are how Shuir and Lily, Shuir organized them to send. And, original orders taken into account, but maybe I'll go over to an example now. So I did bring up.
And George did put into the chat that he's very appreciative of the organization of Lily and her assistant.
Yeah. Like I said, I was CC'd on all those emails, and it was a lot of emails, and watching it kind of develop. I really appreciate George's and Shuir's work on that. So these are the papers of Chaz Bohorquez, another collection I was fortunate to acquire. I'm bringing them up because Chaz did have a solid amount of Born Digital material in his papers as well. So that's when you see ER in a finding aid, that's electronic record. And that means something. I think with Chaz, everything came on thumb drives that were included with the paper. He had about 6 linear feet of actual papers as well. So all digital material gets diverted then over to, we can see who processed this one actually. Sarah Mundy. Thanks, Sarah. So Sarah worked on this one.
So eventually there will be this for Lily is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the finding aid will be done within a year or two. Electronic record, that's how you know that you're looking at something that was transferred through Dropbox or came on a thumb drive or sometimes a hard drive. And it breaks it down into how many gigabytes and how many individual files. So you would request that from the reference team. There's a couple of methods for accessing those. If you came to the office, to the headquarters in DC to look at these, you would be greeted in our brand new reading room, which is so beautiful. And one of the new features of the reading room is that it has it's in progress right now, a Born Digital workstation dedicated. So the reference team I'm not sure how, it'll be interesting to see how it works, that they would pull it up on the screen before you arrive. So typically every morning our reference team goes into storage and pulls out whatever physical boxes have been requested and people's appointments. So whatever the digital equivalent of that is would take place. And then researchers would have that computer station in the reading room to explore these things.
So we have a question about your acquisition of Lily, this first tranche of paper. So how did this come about?
Yeah, so 2017, when Aviva, connected with Kate Haar, director at the time, Kate then, passed it on to us, the curatorial team. I think technically to Mary Savig first, who was our collector for many years, my great colleague. And then I think really because I was familiar with Lily's work, and we do that shuffling, Jenny, as you know, among the curatorial team about who handles what cases often. So Mary handed it over to me, which I was so grateful for. And then I was looking at our emails this morning, Lily, actually back to 2017. And then it was a matter of arranging a visit to Philadelphia, which from DC is just a matter of getting on the train and going to Lily's home. And I remember, and the physical papers are well organized too. They're in Lily's home. They're in stacks, mostly by project. So we started looking through those. We have discussions about whether press clippings should be included. Of course, original material like preparatory sketches and things are always welcome at the archives. I wanted to point to this area of the screen here. So this is metadata. And this one's not so detailed. In other files I've been looking at this morning, it does have the date. So it has things like the date the image was taken. I think that was in Chang'an project, actually.
It was. There were dates, a lot of information.
Yeah. Yeah, Chang'an's metadata is very intact. Yeah, so this was, photo taken in 2008, even the time's there. So, when you look at a letter, piece of correspondence that doesn't have its envelope anymore, and they didn't write the date on the paper, this is like having the envelope,
Great analogy.
I work really hard for myself on trying to understand Born Digital. So finding those analogies is helpful. And sorry if you're an Unbox regular, but I'll say again, I've said it before, where the analogy kind of falls apart is in accessing materials. In this case, it's easier because it's mostly recent kinds of files. And we're fortunate to have Lily and she were very involved in the process. So not difficult here, but often Born Digital materials come to us on antiquated hardware like floppy disks or even weirder collection items. We do have laser disks. We just acquired a laser disc player so we can process, look at those, which is great. But so in the case, it takes me just a nanosecond to open a box of physical papers and start assessing research value. With Born Digital stuff, sometimes the equivalent to opening the box can take hours of labor and very specific skill set, and sometimes really weird equipment that we may or may not have or have to acquire somehow. So opening the box of Born Digital is often an uphill battle. That's a very different, they're very different in scale and nature than our typical work. So let's look at South Sudan. Oh, here's some manuals. Amazing. Oh, this is amazing. So we've had artist research fellows come into the archives in the past and do projects like looking at artists' instructions and following them or reinterpreting them, sometimes completing incomplete projects. We have lots of incomplete project files in the archives, as you can imagine. So I could see this being of interest to someone who's interested in process and instruction. This is great.
So this was a community project that she likely did.
Yeah. Awakening creativity through community placemaking. Yeah, amazing. So, whoever researches this in the future will have a really in-depth view of how Lily works. And that's a great thing. And again, here we have great metadata, the author's there, modified date, created. Program evaluations. Let's see what these are. So here's the template that was used. Audience participant response is something researchers come to us a lot for to understand. And this is kind of gold for that. Oh, this is great. So you see direct responses from participants, how they responded to going through this experience, to let our school look beautiful. Here, this is interesting. So the kind of making the place beautiful is a good foundation for raising up funds for further improvement, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Oh, that is. It's lovely to see this. And this is in South Sudan.
This is, yeah, the South Sudan project bag. So all those children you saw in those photographs. This is amazing documentation, Lily. Good for you for doing that. Amazing. And let's look at some photos, because why not? Are there any questions? I'm happy to answer questions. Any others?
Yeah, please put your questions into the chat box, or if there's any of the folders that you saw Josh scanning by that you want to dig into, let us know and we can click on those.
This is a great survey of the architecture of what I assume became a site for one of Lily's works. The architectural context always super valuable for murals. And here's some great preparatory material.
So this would have been ahead of one of the community art projects.
Yeah. And you can see it's clearly just on whatever piece of paper could be found, a Rail Tours Austria sign. I love that. And just for more background, one thing I've enjoyed in our conversations, Lily, is talking about the kind of deep foundation of Chinese landscape painting. And those are, of course, kind of about world making and world envisioning. And I think a researcher could, or a scholar, I would love to have the 3 months, 6 months to do that project one day, of sitting down and drawing out those art historical threads from Chinese landscape painting to what Lily does in actual space all over the world.
We have a comment that someone says that Lily's work has always been an inspiration for this person's own community work. And seeing neat spreadsheets of comments thrills my digital asset management heart.
Amazing.
And then our colleague Sarah put in a link to the introductory film in case anyone missed that. But we have a question. Did the archives acquire any of her papers? And if not, did we collect any? So we're talking, did we collect any of her born? The question is, did the archives acquire any of her papers? Which I know you addressed at the beginning, but maybe just.
Yeah, so that's the plan. Lily, I assume so, and hope that's still the plan. And like I said at the beginning, we switched to collecting the Born Digital component because of the pandemic, because it was no longer possible to manage that physical, acquisition process during that. Now we can get back to it, but it's amazing that we could be so productive. So, of course, the Born Digital is later stuff because people didn't have digital cameras handy back in the 80s, 90s. So all these things were created. This is like really the most recent production. So we're sort of working backwards here. Usually we'd start with the earliest stuff first. So I spent time with Lily in her home looking at those papers. She was organized them as well. And that's the plan. So this Born Digital is really the first installment. And we definitely plan to work on the papers as well. We're back to normal almost. So Lily, I'll be hitting you up to visit.
Well, we are back to normal, and I lost track of time, so I'm very thankful for our colleague Sarah who put in the prompt that, sorry, we didn't get to your questions, but certainly do come and visit us at the archives in our Washington, D.C. headquarters. Thank you so much, Josh, for just giving us a nice teaser to Lily's papers, and thank you for joining us, Lily. I feel like this is a wonderful start to a conversation, and look forward to exploring her collection more. We hope to see you at our next Unbox Lunch, which will be on May 13th. Thank you for joining us, and again, thank you, Josh, and thank you so much, Lily, for donating your collection and papers to us.
Thank you.
Take care.